Hello, and welcome back to Satisfactory. So, we are on the cusp of redesigning our fuel plant and our aluminum plant to take advantage of the blender, which we've just unlocked. I've got some alternate recipes that use the blender that are really nice, and I started looking at how I might put some blueprints together for it. And there's a basic problem here. Take a look at the blueprint at the blender. I can fit two blenders side by side in this space. And maybe I can fit a refinery with them, or I can fit a blender and a couple of refineries. So I can actually build a nice, clean blueprint in a 5x5 space. Actually does what I want to do. That's because I want to use a few more machines that I can fit in the blender. In the blueprint machine. So instead, I'm gonna take a different approach. Previously, when I've laid out where to go to the south over there, I laid out my refineries over there. I just kind of plopped all the refineries down, and they went around and set up each refinery. I set up its belts in and out, lifters, all the pipes in and out, and all that. Each refinery was doing the same thing over and over again. And we're going to be doing the same thing with blenders. We're going to set up a bunch of them, and then we're going to be doing a little bit of belt work and pipe work on each one. So instead, what I thought I would do is do the belt work and the pipe work for one refinery and one blender, just generically. And I have done some preliminaries. I'm gonna just delete those right now because frankly, what I've got right now is not right. Should have removed these before I started recording. The idea is I will set up a blueprint with one refinery and another blueprint with one blender, unprogrammed. So let's apply changes. I'm going to keep the thin floors of the appropriate sizes, though. Those were fiddly to get right. They're not that complicated. It's a matter of you stripe down a thing, you stripe down a thing, and then you stripe down a thing next to them and in between them and so on. Anyway, so one refinery unprogrammed with its input and output fluids on the same level, with the solids coming from below it, going, solid byproducts going back down below it. So we're going to put the solids on the subfloor, the normal subfloor, and then on the level we've got the fluids, and I'm going to have a superfloor above that so it looks good. So let us go back to blueprints. We're in building blocks. Let's put the refinery size building floor on 0 and blender on 9. So if I go into 0, this exactly fills it up. Now 4 of these side by side will fill this guy. Let's show you that. I will not actually use that because this is a whole lot of different foundation pieces. So I've got all these half foundations that are exactly the right width. Let's get rid of them all. When we start stacking our blueprints up side by side, I'll actually be removing the foundation pieces and replacing them with just the minimal foundation that covers the area I want to cover. But for now, let's start off with a refinery size thin floor, which is centered in the blueprint builder. Doesn't have to be. We could build the whole thing on one end, and as long as we didn't leave this, what is going to be 5 meter wide space, this is 5 meters wide instead of 4, as long as we didn't exceed that, then we've got this bounding volume that is still the same size, and it still would have the center point on the center, no matter where it was on the blueprint designer. But I like centering it up just so I can watch what's going on properly. Second thing is I want to leave room for the subfloor. So there's our thin sandwich subfloor. Going to do it this way? Well, no, I'm going to change my mind right now, and I am going to do this with a thick sandwich subfloor. That way, we won't have to be deleting foundations from this floor just so we can run belts and such. On this level, we're going to put our actual refinery. Put it at the front, output at the back, and centered in the blueprint designer like that. So these guys are just before that line. These guys are well before that line. Let's get in a bit. Kind of go back and forth trying to get these. So you've got the same amount of space in front and in back. Makes it easier to work with where you're going to be running your inputs and outputs. Okay. And final one, I hate to just drag another subfloor through because it will place some foundations in the middle there where we can't get to it. The other thing I've noticed is I didn't center that up properly this way. I have done that so many times. If you don't get it perfectly centered, what ends up happening is that it doesn't tile at 5 meter period, it tiles at 6 meter period, and you can't fit. So let's see, is that centered that way? We've got this guy coming that line, and we're going to go around here and check and make sure that the ladders come in just inside the foundation. These two ladders are the good things to look at here. They should look like they come down just inside the edge of the foundation. Boom. And the superfloor, like I said, if I just drop the superfloor in, it's going to leave a foundation in the middle of that guy. I should have set one of these up that's only this much of it. Oh, I know how to do this. So the superfloor is going to be 2. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to I'm just going to wipe these guys out. We can always stack it back into the middle where we put it. That gives me a thin superfloor. I would go with a thicker superfloor to match, but it covers up too much detail that I want to see in the refinery. So, check the ladders, they look good. The inputs, oh, sorry. Let's turn you. Inputs are from the side with the arrow thing. The outputs are just right on that line or so. Inputs are on that line or so. That's good. And we're centered up, and our inputs are toward the front of the blueprint designer. Boom. Now I can add in. Actually, for these guys, I can zoop. It's that one foundation in the middle. I'm just getting a lot of Z fighting here. I pretty much am forced to use the asphalt in this case, because otherwise these surfaces are just insane to look at. We will be removing these when we start stacking them up 4 wide. I will be removing these foundation plates and putting in a plate that doesn't use 3 half-width foundations to fill up that space. The reason why I did 3 half-widths is it just looked too funky with the Z fighting happening right there, but only right there. So there's my refinery, and it looks like it's nicely mounted in foundation here. We walk up right onto here. We go around to the side. Looks good. If we look at the undercarriage, we see that this really is just framework down here. Cool. And what I've realized just now is that we don't actually need this top bit for a while, because I still need to work out all of my stuff here. Hit G, so we're only going to be moving half foundations. What I will do is I'll leave them in place on one end at a time, so we keep the level. And now I've just realized that this is going to be a pain on this end. Yeah. Any way I do this is going to be awkward putting the top plate. So let's just bite the bullet. So this is going to be a generic refinery, so we want to take the inputs and the outputs that are solid down low, and we want all of our fluids to be on the level. Sending an input to a refinery from a lower level, in fact, providing any fluid input from lower. So if I put my pipes down there and I came up, I've done this in my generators, and I'm realizing it's a bad idea. I've got it sufficiently pressurized there that we're okay. But what this means is that when this guy draws it down, you can only get input when the pipe is full. So we're going to grab, let's see, logistics. You want a pipeline junction. I'm going to be using clean Mark 1 pipes for this stuff. I'm going to bring this guy out in this lane. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say, this is the lane where I'm dealing with the refineries and such. And out here is where I will split to multiple refineries or merge from multiple refineries. So we'll just kind of make that a convention now. The other thing is I will be painting these when we have decided on a recipe. So once we get this done, I will replicate it and configure the refinery and paint everything up so that I can put in a whole bunch of just one particular recipe. And we may only do those at the last minute when we're about to build something. So those are the fluids. You know, so we just stack these side by side and just connect the fluid to the fluid to the fluid out that way. I'm not sure what we're going to do out here. Yeah, this would be a lane for other fluids to go down. I'd probably pull this in tighter if I wanted. How tight can I pull it? That's actually a nice idea. Can we pull it all the way in? Okay, I have no way of knowing whether that's connecting or not, so I would have to pull it out to here. And to my utter astonishment, that actually seems to have clipped in. So we're going to do these as close as possible to the refinery. Now, my vision is that we have some sort of a bus. Let's say the bus is going north-south, and we pull what we want from the bus out to these guys. Here's the input side. We provide it with the input. We stack these up going away from the bus, so we supply them from this side. We pull it back from there. So we're looking at doing a bus system, possibly inside a big building, possibly not. These are really tall, so I do not anticipate going vertical, unless it's a very large vertical. So now we want to put in the logistics for our stuff. We're still on 4s. We don't have the aluminum production yet. Support doing Mark 5s everywhere. So I'm going to put that on 4. Oh, that's going to be painful. 4, 2, 5. 3 is going to be my holes. I'm going to need lifts. So 5. 4 is the lift. There we go. I could sneak this all the way back in there. I will. Now, I just checked recipes recently, and we actually don't need to go Mark IV lift. Even 4 wide. Let me bring up the recipe book in my editor here quick. Way down at the bottom, refinery / anything. Let's see, we have bauxite, which could be 200 per minute. Okay. We have raw quartz, it could be 120. Everything else is 120 and under. Most everything is 60. So bauxite might be 200. Quartz, limestone, and coal might be 120. Everything else is 60. We go 2.5x. Then things get dicey. Let's see, that would be 500. We could have a refinery taking up to 500 bauxite per. I think if we do that, we go and we replace things on our own. Everything else is mostly 60 and under. So 2.5 would be 60, 120, 180, so under 200. Yeah. So it doesn't really matter what size we're building. But I'm going to use Mark IV lifts because we have a lot of materials for them. We're producing good materials for them, and they're on my hotbar. And for now, I'm going to face these toward the middle. I like making use of all this space for doing splitters and mergers. And we'd end up with a whole bunch of these guys facing in the middle. We'd have our splitters and our mergers in the middle, and the ultimate input would come from the side, and the ultimate output from the side. So there's our Singleton refinery, ready to go. Oh, but it's not. 2 things. First of all, I need to put the power in. And once I've got the power in, I need to put in my top deck. I did say that was going to be left. So I am going to put the power on the underside of top level of the sandwich. That's centered. And to make it so I don't have to snake in there to get it, I am going to bring it out to the back. And I'm going to bring it out to the front. When running the power, just go right down the line. Boom, boom, boom. Those guys should all line up right like that. Yep. Power's done. Now the top level, you know what, with this all buttoned up, the only downside to using the blueprint is I end up with one of these guys. It's the one above that, which I don't think we can see. Yeah, I'm going to try something here. We have a refinery size thin floor, which I'm going to put side by side on here. Put the next refinery over this. So this way I can delete a refinery and check things out. Raise the floor to the level. 1, 2. Dismantle that. Dismantle that. I go to blocks here, and I'm going to see if I can delete FG to set the filter. I'm going to see if I can delete all of the foundations from here. I didn't want to do this with the one I've placed down there. I don't want to be picking him up. Use that. Oh, okay. So I don't need to worry. Do not need to worry at all. Refinery size, thin floor, place mode blueprint, boom, boom, boom. And when time comes to remove this guy, I will be able to run around underneath there and him. I should have checked that before I started recording too. So we have this. This gives us a base that I don't have to remove to do my belt work below. I can always later on put in a raised floor and remove the base and end up with 2 thin sandwiches instead of a thin sandwich and a thick sandwich. We're unprogrammed. Our fluids are brought out and put to a junction. Our inputs and outputs are brought down to the subfloor, and we have the ability to do stuff with them here. So this is a new blueprint. It is called Building Block 1 Refinery. Single. Let's see. Actually, I don't need to say a whole lot. You know what this is. This is a refinery. I'm going to put icon in. Things of note here. Fluids on the main level. Belting goes the subfloor. Super floor provided for nice. Well, not nice, but super floor provided for improvement of floor. It's the BB1 refinery. Building block 1. Clear blueprint designer. So we turn it so the arrow points to us. I'm going to put it all the way down at one end. And then with the build mode set to blueprint, I'm holding down the control key. And we now have all 4 of them in the blueprint designer ready to go. So what do I want to do with 4 of them? Well, I want to do all the interconnections between these guys. And I think what I want to do there is actually remove all of the half foundations. I'll replace them with full foundation size floors. Notice how many foundations I was using here? Because I really had to get it to cover the size and not be crazy. Let me come back here. Just nose in and just that. Any more? That's got all the superfloors picked up. We'll put that back down with full-size stuff. In fact, at that point, I don't have to use the asphalt. So we will be linking these up this way, but I think before I do that, I'm going to even do one more set of construction here. This guy up. I'm not going to pull up, well, I will pull up the floor because I'm going to replace it in just a moment. I could have left this floor in, but you see how many pieces this is. I do not want to be using this much in terms of build resources, in-game resources at one time, and all of that. So, G. That's 50 already. There we go. So now we're looking at this from the bottom. We need to split here, and we need to merge here. So let's do the splitters first. Turn these two guys face the middle. Okay. Now we're going to put in, I'm going to need splitters and mergers on my hotbar. Put those on 7. 7's a merger. I need to hit E for a splitter. It's going to be splitting from the middle. So our inputs are going to arrive down the middle here. So they will be split left and right. And this guy is a splitter from the right. That is a splitter from the left. And we'll be putting this elevated after we put the back in. Similar thing over here. This time we are merging toward the middle. That. So now I need to find my 5x5 blueprint in here. Thin concrete slab, I will put that on button 8. Putting it on default so it doesn't try to line up with the blueprint. Only fit in one particular place. Just like that. Now we put our splitter in here. We're taking our input from the front, sending it to both of those two guys. But I want it to be in the middle. I want it to be there. So we are having to compromise on where our splitter is. Because that solid input was too close to the actual center line of the blueprint, which is here. That's fine. And now when we instantiate it, we just bring it in from there or wherever. Maybe there's a splitter here for a big bus line. I don't know. Doesn't matter. This is a module. I'm going to bring this out. Just bring it out straight here to show this is where the input comes from. Here we have a merger. Going to be headed out back. Again, I would like for it to be centered, but we can't do that. We'll just bring it to. There's our solid inputs and outputs done. We can now run our pipes. Clean Mark 1 pipeline. Boy, I am just having a heck of a time getting these. Clean Mark 1 pipeline. Let's do horizontal to vertical because I believe that will force me to be a little more in line. They're direct lines. Any of the things should be turning out the same inline solution. I think this makes it a little easier for me to get it clipped in. Because it's fluid, we literally can accept the fluid input from anywhere along here. Any of these junctions could get the input. We could get it from the end, we could get it from the front. We could even put another junction on this pipe here if we wanted to. Although for reasons, if you do put a junction in the middle of a pipe, what I would strongly suggest, well, first of all, I would much strongly suggest put a foundation in so that you get this junction exactly on the place where you want it. So you delete the pipe, build up the foundation, put the junction in, and then reconnect the pipes. If you have to split a pipe like this, after you've put this in place, notice that that guy and that guy meet in the middle. Could cause problems. I think that's actually one of the causes for the various reports people have about, oh, my Mark II pipes are doing the wrong thing. Other thing is, and I just realized this, I do need this to be a pipeline Mark II. Somehow I have never unlocked the Mark II pipeline that's clean. Because, let's see, refineries, we have refineries that can bring in 200 units per minute of water. So this would be at a minimum, no matter where we bring the water in here, some part of this is going to have to handle 400. So those can be downgraded to Mark I pipes if I decide to do it. When I put this in, you drop the 4s in, you say, oh, I am, for some reason, worried about the resources it's taking to do Mark II pipelines, so we're going to drop a Mark I pipeline on these. You could do that. You can say, oh, the valve, these things are ugly, I will drop a Mark I pipeline and clean on it. And I need to go back to the awesome shop and take some tokens in and make sure I have purchased everything, including Mark II clean pipes. Anyway, so this is almost done. We still need to button it up some, which means we need to put in some more concrete slabs. We're going to line that with the blueprint. I want to do it. Now, it's not really important where the arrow points on these, but I like to things clear. Boy, and that is just pixel perfect pointing is required to get this to line up on top, isn't it? One more. There we go. And now we can complete the the ones from the intermediate floors. Leave the wrong ones. Oh, well, that's the right top one. That's the right bottom one. I want to put the one in the middle so that it matches up with these guys, and maybe, I'm not sure when it does or does not do this, but you just stamp this down, you end up with the legs zooping down. I don't like it. I really don't. There. So now we have the, this is the floor on which we originally mounted the refineries. This is the floor level where we come in and we look at it and we say, oh, these are nicely built buildings that have no framework above ground, and they're just kind of here. Yeah. And my power is from the power nub, which is exposed out here. We're just going straight down. That's good. And at some point I messed up my little framing here for my thingy. There. I actually kind of like having the flooring around the blueprint machine match up with the surface of the blueprint machine rather than being one lower. And often I will countersink the blueprint machine by 1 meter to get that. In this case, I just raised the area around it. So, for actually the name we want to use is going to be BB4 Refinery. So 4 refineries, 4 unconfigured refinery fluids. So it's extended, level, solids, lifted to and from the subfloor, evenly split from main input and evenly to the output. Sometimes I do manifolds instead of even splits. I like to make that really clear in the blueprint description. Save. I'm not going to do a configured version of this quite yet. I want to place it once and configure it and see it working, and then I'll come back to the blueprint designer and lock in the configurations and start making some blueprints that are configured. So there's our setup for refineries. We'll do the same thing with blenders now. Clear blueprint designer. So my original blender floor is exactly the width of the blender, which is less than half of this. So what I want to do is I'm going to actually redefine the blueprint of the blender to be 2.5 foundations wide. It's really 2.25, but that means that 2 of them in a row doesn't add up to 5 foundations. So I ended up putting some stuff in between anyway. So let us start with one of these. And I'm just going to loop this in for 2.5. And I'm going to put the half down the middle, because I like putting the halves down the middle where they're seen. foundations, half foundation. This way I don't have to worry about the fact that depending on what the texture is, sometimes this edge, the one that's in the middle, sometimes that'll be a different texture. And now I'm going to change the materials on this to asphalt so that it matches my other small size. And let's verify that a blender sits on top of that. Production blender. So a blender would center up on this with inputs toward me. Roughly here-ish. Now, blenders actually take up a little less space. Okay, so when I lay this blueprint repeatedly down, it will be taking up an extra couple of meters as opposed to putting blenders down side by side by side by side. But that's okay. It's okay. The world doesn't have infinite size, but it's big enough. We can make our blenders have a little bit of breathing room. And the name that I want to use for this, I put, this is the blender size thin floor. Icon for it is a foundation, thin and concrete. There we go. Now, before I centered it up, I think just based on economy, well, let's see, if I clear that, what is really feel most natural? I think most natural is if I just keep centering it up like I did before. There's a blender size. Notice it's going from that point to that point, so it is 2.5 foundations wide. We can see the score marks in the asphalt here, but it's not a completely flat thing. And what we want to do is build this up so we have two. This is our big sandwich where we're going to be running all of our belts. This also has the same potential problem that one of these guys in the middle might not be available. Let's solve that now. But we also need to do one of these for the manufacturer. A blender. Putting you in, centered on this line. So our inputs and our outputs are kind of on these lines. They're centered here. This places our inputs and outputs along these seams. Okay? So they're not going to match up with a wall with holes that's on these guys. Bear that in mind. What I want to do is I want to figure out which of the half foundations I need to leave out of the blender size floor when I put it in here. The way I'm going to do that, I'm going to this. Going to erase all of the foundations that we get our hands on out here. And you see there's that one half-width foundation dead centered. And the question is, can I actually reach it? I believe the answer to that is it can be seen, but it can't be reached. So I just need to make a version of this that doesn't have that one hole in the middle. Okay, let's do that. Load blueprint. Undersized thin floor. I'm just going to do that. Now, I could just make that my blender size thin floor and not worry about it. It would mean that we have a hole down the middle. I better not. This is or blender hole floor. Blueprints. Edit. So blender size thin floor. Building blocks. Uncommon sized floor. Does whole floor. BB1 refinery. Here, BB4 there. We're ready to go. Go back to this. Blender size, thin floor, facing front, dead centered. Blueprint, print, print, blueprint. There is our thick sandwich layer for the beltwork. Place our blender down on this layer. I'm actually pretty sure it wouldn't let me place the blender if I already had the upper floor in place. And are we anywhere near where we want to be? That looks a lot better. This is lined up nicely. Notice that this guy's outputs are off to one side. Kind of interesting. I actually like the shape of these guys. Now, because we haven't put anything else in, I'm going to go ahead and run the power. I think power can go like here, but underneath. If I can do this without losing my line. And we're going to bring you up to here and out to here. There. Now I don't have to snake myself around to get the power in line. So we have 2 fluid inputs, 2 solid inputs, 1 fluid output, and 1 solid output. So this is going to be easy. The solids are all going to go down into subfloor. Let's go ahead and put the conveyor lifts in. I'm using conveyor lift Mark IV because I have a lot of materials for Mark IV conveyor lifts. There. So our primary outputs, primary input and output, I'm going to have as close as possible. But I can't do that because this guy needs to make a dogleg and go up. So I really need to bring this guy out. So anyway, if he is coming out here, I am going to bring him up to here. that. That means that this pipeline has to be out at least this far. Okay. We'll get to him in a moment. Hey, I just had a thought. This guy is not as long as the refineries. I wonder if I could just set this to use the same primary lanes for its fluids as the refinery already uses. Turn you toward me. Oh, you're kidding. My modules are of the correct, just happen to be of the size. I could literally put a refinery on either side of one of these, or two on one side, one on the other. That's good. And now we can come in here and I can say, well, put him on this line. Him on that line. Hey, does it work if I turn that guy 180 degrees so his output is toward the blender's input and vice versa? I may have just stumbled on something here. I bet you this is completely intended. Oh, okay. So in theory, we could build a blueprint out of our, just out of our modular stuff that we've been doing. These haven't been packed in, right? Which has a very nice layout of two refineries and a blender. We can have the refineries facing either way. The primary fluids match up with the refineries. The secondary fluid is going to be up on a higher level so it won't conflict. Solids all end up on the subfloor. So I'm going to be on the lookout for any sub recipes that break down neatly into two refineries per blender, even if, you know, something has to be slightly up-clocked or down-clocked. That works just fine. Get rid of our excess here. We're still working on the generic refinery, generic blender. Before we put in the superfloor, let's get everything else all lined up. You're using a Mark I pipe. There are no blender recipes, I think. Need that. Let's take a look. Blender. Consulting my long list of crap. So we have a recipe that has 150 bauxite going into a blender. That's not fluid. 100 water. That'd be 250 water if it was completely overclocked. We're good. And the solids are all being set down below. What I'm going to do to make this really easy, I'm actually going to dust that floor so I can get in here and what's going on. I think for the single blender recipe, I just want to have these. Okay, I'll have one go out that way, and one come in from the middle, and this will go back into the middle for merging. This is because these are going to be picking from a splitter somewhere. We don't know where. We're good? We're good. Bring the blender size thin floors in. One more. I have 2 blender size thin floors. What is going on? It just reverted to the older blender size thin floor somewhere. What's going on? I will look at that in a moment. Okay. That's the level I want to keep. It's got a hole in the middle that I want to get rid of. This one's got a hole in the middle I don't want to get rid of. And it now has a nice flat top where I can put the upper fluid. I'm going to put it on the same line, so it's going to be exactly above the other one. So we have 2 pipes, one over the other. Now, I'm not using a hole here because the hole wouldn't work. The ceiling is too low. The hole, if we used a hole there, we couldn't make the turn in. So we are just clipping this through the floor. That's fine. I think that looks good enough. Anybody would know how to pour concrete around a pipe, right? So that little arm's base is down in the concrete. It doesn't look too bad. And the rest of this is just exactly the way I wanted it. So, this blueprint is going to be called BB1 Blender. Their blueprint. Now we take BB1 Blender. I'm going to snap it down twice because it will fit in the 5x5 area twice. And now we just need to connect these all up together. Oh, and get rid of the rather expensive foundation work. So foundation ones, there's some foundation halves in there as well. We'll get those in a Notice the hole in there? There is actually not a half foundation in that hole. Yay! If we go in and look, we don't see anything intruding in that space. That's the first one. Second one. That leads us to this floor on the bottom. I'm still going to use the filters here because it's easy to end up selecting something else. I really wish that it would say if you're deleting something inside the Blueprint Designer, automatically not include anything in a batch delete that is outside the Blueprint Designer. So often I have deleted some part of my factory by mistake. You had those. Got them. So connect them up. Fluids are easy. And these actually need to be Mark IIs just in case, because the tide, who knows how far along. These guys, these are outputs. They need to be feeding into a merger somewhere. These inputs need to be feeding from a splitter somewhere, but they're all in line, so we can't face them inward. At this point, we need our floor. Oh, nice 5x5 thin concrete slab. Arrow pointing that way. So we're going to merge these two and send the output. I think I'm going to send the output toward the back. We've got plenty of space here on the underfloor to do our merges, and we're going to need a little extra space over there for merger. Comes out the front. I'm going to put it on the center line. So now when we place this, we can take it out either direction or out the back or whatever we want. Let's drag it out to here so we can find it. These guys need to have a splitter in the middle somewhere. So from here, it's going to be taking from the north. Here, it's going to be taking from the south. So I'm going to drag these out to show where they're coming from. We don't know whether it's going to be coming from this direction and in or coming from that direction and in. There may be a splitter out here. This is simpler than the refinery. Out. That's not gonna. So we're gonna need to put in splitters, make the tight turns into these guys. So these lifters need to be temporarily got rid of. Otherwise, we can't put our splitters in where we want them. Splitter. From the middle. This guy. From the middle. This guy. That's not right. This is in the wrong place. Poot. I'm going to do those. I'm going to leave this one where he is. We're going to leave these a little more widely spaced. I think we've got enough room here. We've got a splitter coming from that direction. I'm going to bump it over 2 meters. Like that. Splitter. Input from there. That way. Splitter from the right. Splitter. Those all line up so that they're all well clear. So we're not even clipping belts. We could even have packed that a little bit better. Go. Amazing that I still end up hovering even though I'm in a space where I'm not hovering substantially higher than I walk. Just because it makes it easier to go over the belts. So, somewhere from the front we end up diving in here. We get split out to this guy that goes up there and that guy goes up. This side we come in somewhere from here. Split to there and to there. Good. But our power is just hanging there in midair, waiting for us to put this back in. I do need to connect from there to there. I will be connecting over to another corner over on the left in a moment. Get our next floor in. We are ready for the next floor. Okay, there's the floor that covers up the through holes. So the next question is, are we going to have a foundation stuck in the middle of that guy we'll never be able to delete? I think the answer to that is yes. So for this top level, I'm going to put it in by hand. Not blueprints, but builder foundations. 1 meter. We're going to keep the concrete. That's the right level. It is. For some reason, when I am pressing my middle mouse button, it's picking up the wrong thing. Metal mode normal. Oh, that's a different texture. Right. So concrete. I forgot that I used the glossy concrete around on the base here. It's nice looking, but it's not what I want to deploy here. Because it does require some plastic. So if I put one in there, I don't think I can reach in and delete it. I'm not even sure if that looks new. Tell you what, I am going to save the blueprint. This is BB2 Blender. I can reload the blueprint if this blows it up. If I have one there, can I delete it? Hey, I can. Okay. So we'll go ahead and do that. Next thing is, do I want to put one bin behind there? Well, let's see. If I put it in there, can I delete it? Answer is I can't delete it. You know what? I'm going to live with it because I think I wouldn't be replacing that with something else anyway. And if I really have to, I can always pull out the blender and put in a new blender and then reconnect in all the places after it. Oh, fudge. Nope, let's not. Let's not. We want to load blueprint. So he's a yes. Hold on. Should have loaded. Clear blueprint. Do not have resources because here, it should be dragging resources from here, shouldn't it? Load blueprint, B2 Blender. Finish up. So I do not want to put in a concrete there. I think what I'll do is I'll put in a half-width concrete. Make it kind of match up. That's still deletable, and it's got the same look as over there. It's got a little bit of an open space behind it. That's good because it matches a little bit of the open space. That. The other alternative is I could turn this into a half one. That's actually probably better. There. That gets me my middle thingy is going down through the middle and we're making space for it. That looks pretty. I will use that. There's my BB2 blender. there we have it. So now we have a series of blueprints. Allows us to place down refineries and blenders with some appropriate flooring and interconnections, and even the one wide has it pulled out so it makes it easier to connect them. Did I miss something on the two wide? Did I missed my final power connections. I need to bring you out to the corner so you're like all my other blueprints with power connections available easily in the corners. In the corner? Yeah, they're close enough. Didn't want them on the corner. I don't think these connections can come closer. The power poles can actually move half that distance. These guys can. What I really wish is that if you put down a blueprint that overlapped something, and the areas of overlap were all identical things, that it would just ignore the identical things and not duplicate the item in place, but not put a new one down. That, and I wish that you could do that and have it clipped, because I could take these two wide, put the second one down halfway over, and have three wide, and then go over again and put it down. You could take a two wide thing, you could just use it to add one to the end each time. I don't know why they've never made it so that adjacent blueprints don't connect their belts and pipes and power and such. If they did the overlap thing, maybe that would be easier. It'd be harder to explain, I think. Yeah, well, we'll see what happens with Satisfactory over the next, I don't know, 10 years. I mean, how long have I been playing some of these games? Satisfactory has been in early access for about 5. Been playing Factorio since forever. Kerbal Space Program, well, I know I was playing that back in 13, possibly 2012. But yeah, I think that there's a feeling that I get about some games where you just know they're going to last forever. You know? First game I had that feeling about was Dungeons and Dragons. That was back in, I was before 1980. Pretty sure we were playing D&D before I graduated from high school. I know we were playing it after I graduated. And I know that I had played it for quite a while before I went to college. Earliest, I think, was a D&D campaign, first edition, that I fell into. I think it was the USO. A bunch of military guys that kept a D&D campaign going. And, you'd get guys that were assigned, they had to go off somewhere else. You'd get new guys being deployed to the local base, and they'd join. And we always had a flux of people coming through, but it was always a good campaign. Lots of running around in dungeons for them. They love that stuff. I loved it too. Anyway, so you get that feeling for a game, and it lasts forever. Sometimes I've had it about a few games where they lasted for a long time and then suddenly stopped for reasons that had nothing to do with the gameplay. I won't get into those. Some of them are sore spots. Some of them are painful to remember. Some of them will cause other people to get mad. That game sucked. Well, newsflash, if a popular game is popular, your opinion that it sucks says more about you than about the game, okay? Anyway. This is why I don't go around saying things like Facebook sucks, even though it's not my cup of tea. I have problems with the company, but there's a lot of people that seem to get positive value from it, so I don't go around saying it sucks. If I can avoid saying Facebook sucks, you can avoid saying various other games that have not stood the test of time. You can avoid saying that. Speaking of the test of time, Civilization, there's a whole series of games that have definitely stood the test of time. Oh my God. I have been known to go back and revisit them. I must admit that some of my most fond memories of Civ 3 are the hours and hours my friends and I used to spend trying to get their networking code to work. Remember one evening we spent 6 hours trying to get the game to connect. We finally got everybody connected into the game. 10 minutes later, we had to go. Very late night. Anyway, enough's enough. Manufacturers, do we want to? Yeah, let's do manufacturers. Clear blueprint designer. I have not even roughed this out, so let's see. Let's start off with the same thick subfloor. You guys built. There's our subfloor where we're going to move all of our belts. Let's see, builder, blueprints. Oh. I don't know, can you fit two manufacturers side by side in this space? Let's check that first. If it's only one, I may just punt on being fancy. We can fit two, which means what I can do is I'm going to use the blender floor for this stuff. Oh, the other thing I can do is with the blenders and the manufacturers, I could consider going vertical, putting a second floor above the first. I don't know, if I see recipes where I really need to do that, I can. I like the look of the machines, though. I think stacking those machines vertically detracts from that. So maybe we'll just stay level with these guys. So, clear blueprint. Oh, that was the other thing I needed to fix, was that something happened to my floors. Load blueprint. My blender's sized thin floor. That's correct. Okay, load blueprint. I'm gonna try different names just in case something weird is happening behind the scenes. Building blocks. So blender whole floor. That one's been okay. I would just call this blender floor. That. Now we'll load up that, and I will call this refinery floor. Go back to here, and I can. Refinery, blender, BB2 blender, blender whole floor we're keeping. This guy goes away. refinery floor, blender floor, blender hole floor, BB1 refinery, BB4 refinery, BB2 blender. Blueprints, building blocks. We're going to put refinery floor on 0, BB1 refinery on 9, BB1 blender. Why is it reversing the order of these? So there's 0. There's blender floor, which is lined there. That looks like the right size. And blender hole floor is the same size with refinery and 4 refineries and and 8 gives us 1 blender, 2 blenders, 1 blender, 2 blenders. We're good. Third blueprint designer. We're going to start out with the blender floor. We are centered. Bring that up to the we want it. That. Manufacturer. Top. Left to right, we need to be centered. There we go. Fore and aft, we've got this guy just inside the line, and these guys way inside the line. So let's move it back this way. He may be the same size as the blenders. But you're just over that midpoint, and you're just over that midpoint. So one challenge we've got here is how are we going to arrange 4 belts of input such that we can take from 4 coming this way. And I think we have to take at least one of our inputs up to a superfloor. So what I'm going to do, instead of taking 1 up, I'm going to take 2 of them up. So we'll end up with 2 guys down below and 2 guys up above. Yeah, and I'm going to bring it out and down, out and up, out and down, out and up. This guy will go down. That means that on... Oh... We have to go out and up because we need to have them going this way. We have to have this crossing over it. So we do have to have belts on the super. Is there a clever way I can do this? The answer is yes. I can't allow 2 belts at 90-degree angles pass through each other in my subfloor. Am I willing to do that? Take a look at my recipes real quick. So we're not using any manufacturers. I'm not going to throw this up on screen. It's just too much text here. I am planning out aluminum and a refinery. The aluminum guy doesn't need any manufacturers. As far as I can see, we've got blenders, foundries, so on. Refinery... The refinery doesn't use any either. Okay, we are dodging this. I am not going to. I'm not going to build blueprints for the manufacturer. They're a blueprint designer because I need to come to a conclusion on my own about how I'm going to handle those 4 inputs to the manufacturer. It might very well be that we set the manufacturer up sideways so that our inputs run left to right underneath it. Okay. And you pick them up and put it in the manufacturer. And then the outputs, well, we have to figure out what the output does. The output would naturally go, so you'd have 2 inputs and 4 inputs like this. And the output would have to be merged into a line between those two. A little tight, but it works. But I think that's something we have to come to a conclusion on when we actually have a recipe that does it. Oh, I hadn't noticed that. Cool. So the next thing may be actually starting the build for our new oil area. We have used up 2 of our pure nodes and 1 of our normal nodes over there. We have another normal node. I could build a power station based on that 1 remaining normal node. And that would allow me to retire one of the other power stations. Because the new recipe is huge. And with that in place, I could then build the second power. The other thing I could do would be to take a quick census of this and figure out, can we get up here? We can get up here. Oh my God. I don't think I can hover all the way over, but we can kind of keep going like this. Yeah, that's and I am in trouble if I come off the edge. Let's. What have we got over here in the way of oil nodes? I think it's just the 2 pure and the 2 normal nodes. And our first normal node that we used is using the oldest of old technologies to do the refining. And this is actually supplying the bulk of our plastic and rubber, because the other 2 are using recipes that are optimized for turning out much fuel as possible using that technology. The technology available at the time, so they don't provide much. So I would not want to retire this until I have more plastic and rubber coming. And there's the other one. I think you're normal, right? If necessary, I can overclock the heck out of you. So you are capable of bringing 120 crude oil per minute. Well, this may be worth bringing up on the screen. So let's see, heavy oil residue using 120 crude oil. I suppose you can see what. That's the wrong editor window. Where to go? Blender. There we go. This is actually what my Python code turns out. I tend to prune this down before I turn it into a checklist. So if we've got 120 crude oil coming in, I'll need 4 refineries making heavy oil residue. Hey, I just happen to have a blueprint for that. I'll need 4 blenders making diluted fuel. Hey, I have a recipe, a nice little blueprint that does 2 of them. So 120 crude oil becomes 160 heavy oil residue. That residue becomes 320 fuel. That will feed 16 power generators. So my old plants were from a pure node, 10 generators. This is from a normal node, half as much oil, and I'm getting 16 generators out of it. And for that, I need 3 water extractors. I will need a couple of refineries taking our resin and turning it into rubber and plastic. So it'd be a dribble of rubber and plastic coming out of this thing. And let's see, crude oil, we've got various ways of acquiring it, which I didn't really. But that's for 120 crude oil. What if instead of 120 crude oil, say pump Mark.2, not Mark 2, here, count. Now let's just put in a number. Let's say I bring it up to 300 crude oil. But 300 crude oil, we get this: 10 refineries and 8 blenders. We could overclock things, or we could just let it be big. I'm thinking let it be big. And that gives us 40. This isn't even a pure node. This is a normal node. Overclocking just the oil extractor, we can get 10 gigawatts out of this thing. Which means this whole area, we could get 60 gigawatts if all we built was fuel. As a byproduct, we will be getting 40 per minute of these guys, or 6 times that. Okay? So that'd be 240 per minute if we did the whole thing. Plastic and rubber do we need? How much power do we need before we go nuclear? That's a lot of power. So crude oil total available from here. The other thing is that the pure node I could get pure nodes I could get 600 from. 600 maxes out of. So 300 by 2 and 600 by 2. 600 by 2 is 12, so 1800. So this is for the whole area. So I could take the whole dang thing, all 4 nodes, overclock the heck out of all of them, shove it into 60 refineries making heavy oil residue, shove that into 48 blenders making diluted fuel, feeding into 240 fuel generators. 60 gigawatts of oil power. Shivers go up and down my spine. Yeah. We don't have to build that out right away. But I could build this out, maybe just, let's build it out with 120 crude oil at a time. Set this up so we can do it extensible. So basically, we'll just lay out a strip where you've got the 4 refineries and the 4 blenders, and then somewhere off to the side, the 16 fuel generators. So we can take that entire thing and just let it grow. So you end up with just this immense line of refineries going out into the distance. An immense line of blenders going out to the distance. And then how much ever space you want for the fuel generators going off in the distance. Not a bad plan. So what would it take to get that started? I would need to have a plan for where to put it. As we extend, I would want to extend either north or south so that I didn't end up with my power plant hitting the edge of the world and stopping. Well, I would want to start it out here somewhere. Or south? How about north and south? So, normal, here, normal. We come out here, start building to the south and to the north, and we'll just let it go both directions. The idea would be we would have refineries along a line, and then blenders along a line, and then power. We'd want a module that the whole thing took up the same space this way. So the space of 4 refineries is, well, let's toss some up. Blueprints. So we have maybe 4 refineries. We're going to set up the refineries in groups of 4, the blenders in groups of 2. We are facing south, so south is the direction we want everything to extend. And that means inputs are going to come from the left. Our jetpack. About that. Actually need to recover the jetpack from Dimensional Depot. Fuel on me. I think I have any fuel on me. I need to get some fuel out of the Dimensional Depot. Oh, there's fuel. This blueprint is going to be taking crude oil from that side, turning out stuff on this side. This is not configured or colored. This will be heavy oil residue, which means it turns out the heavy oil residue on this side. That needs to go to the blenders. Blenders are the input to the left. But we need 4 blenders, not 2. Means we need to turn it. Input from right there. And I haven't put a whole bunch of casings. I haven't made a bunch of casings of it for doing this, but we need to build a second one out here. And then beyond that, we have to put the generators. How big are the generators? I think the generators, we can fit, yeah. In fact, I remember this. Generators, we can fit 2 generators side by side in a 5x5 area. And we would need 8 of that. Means at a minimum 4. I don't think those fit. But back to base. Take a look at what we can do to make a compact area for fuel. Keep coming up this side, even though I know that there's no way onto the top. Looking out that direction, I don't really... I just realized that we're not going to be able to look out there and see where the end of the world line is. So what we really want to do is start our refineries along the first line we can set up. Is not going to clip into something. I think where that bow hits the ground, that might be it. I have a interactive map handy. And the world border. So according to SCIM, the world border is quite a ways out from there. Off to the left, eventually it turns and it heads southeast instead of south. So I think we would want to I don't know how big that's going to be. Do I want to turn it so that I am, instead of running north, south, east, west, I turn it to a proper angle to follow the world border that way diagonally, and then build it down the coast? I think what I will do is start just beyond there. I'm going to build it north, and we will see what the scale of it is once I've got some of it in. Then we'll build. No, I'll build north and south. It could very well be that we'll just expand it north and south until we run into the world border, and then just kind of throw up our hands and make a turn. That's something that I'm going to have to plan. So we're not going to do that today. Instead, I'm going to call this a recording. I need to take a break. Refresh my mind. So we have our blueprints. You know roughly what we're going to do with them. We'll set down the first set of them and get the first refinery working. And if that all just kind of goes in nicely, well, either we will correct the blueprints as needed or leave them as they are, and then set up copies of the blueprints with the recipes and the down clocks locked in, or up clocks if we're going to do that. We've actually been pretty good about collecting and not using power shards. I've been using them temporarily, power shards and Summers loops. So if I need to do a bunch of things, I'll put some machines down and I'll shard them up and sloop them up, and we'll get it done. That's how I've been making my power shards, actually. Where's your fog? Where's your fog? There's your fog. So we may decide to do some power sharding in. I know I'm going to shard up my oil derricks just because, you know, one doesn't want to leave that much performance on the table. You can only have so many of them, so you shard those. For constructors and assemblers and so on, no point in overclocking unless it seriously simplifies them. The other thing to look at is, aside from making a better power plant and a better aluminum plant, what do we actually need in Tier 8? I'm going to need to make radio control units, and I need to have aluminum sheets and aluminum casings on the, basically on the bus. So I need to have them available so that I can use them to do my research, which just means being able to go get them. And we're already mostly there, although I would like to have these being automatically generated and placed in the depot. Radio control units we'll need to build. Supercomputers, I think we don't need to automate those. We may not need to automate those much either, although I can't see making those. Automate them for low quantity. Advanced aluminum. Oh, this is going to open up, no doubt, some improved recipes. So maybe I don't want to think about scaling my aluminum up too quickly yet. Nuclear power. I'm going to scale up my oil production. I don't know whether I'm going to be doing nuclear power or not. If I do, I'm going to be waiting for particle enrichment. I don't want to be dealing with waste. This gets us better miners. Still mostly radio control units that we need to open things up, and some supercomputers. Particle enrichment. Yeah, that's going to be expensive. We'll just take these one at a time. I'm not going to do a, let's open up all 4 in Tier 8. Like in Tier 7, I did all 4 of these at once because they were all pretty much easy. These guys look like each one of them adds in more challenges. Advanced aluminum may be fairly easy to do once you've got radio control units going. You guys can require fused modular frames and supercomputers. So we'll need supercomputers for that. I may do leading edge production before nuclear power. And let's see. I do need to unlock particle enrichment for nuclear pasta. I do need to unlock this for thermal protection. I'm looking to see if there's anything we can skip here. I think they've basically made it so you have to do all of them. Yeah, nuclear power gets us the magnetic field generators. You have to actually do all the research. And the order is pretty obvious. I would probably defer nuclear power. Certainly I could do advanced aluminum first. So yeah, we will need to get some aluminum. We don't need to scale it up. I will want to scale up my oil, probably not to the full 60 gigawatts, but scale it up some. I am going to have to look at any changes to nuclear power. Once I've done the research for nuclear power, I'll look at any changes to it and see if it's worthwhile to tackle before we have particle enrichment. Probably not. I may just not want to deal with the headaches. We can't see what's in phase 9 yet. But I think that's going to be it for the recording. Probably should have cut it off half an hour ago. I'll see you in the next one.